And away we go. Let's get started. So let's talk about the budget category. Those of you who are looking to get into HiFi, but you're seeing reviews and you're reading articles and you're looking at prices and you're saying, holy cow, why does this stuff cost so much? Well, the good news is you could get into a HiFi system for very little money compared to some of those prices you've been seeing. And in 2024, my favorite budget piece and brand is WIM. Now, WIM has come out with the WIM Ultra in 2024, the WIM Amp in 2024. Before that, they came out with the little WIM Pro Plus, but the WIM Ultra and the WIM Amp are truly astonishing products for such little money. And I don't mean that they're so astonishing that they compete against, $5, $10, $15, $20,000 pieces. What I mean is they're so astonishing for the amount of money we pay for these pieces. Let's talk about my favorite budget piece of 2024, hands down. It is the WIM Ultra. Now, this is a preamp, a streamer, and it has a DAC built in, right? And the DAC is pretty good. The streamer is excellent, and the preamp is decent. And it comes in a little attractive, very nice looking box with a little LCD screen that displays the cover art, the track you're listening to, the time remaining. It can even show digital VU meters, all for what, $329. It comes with a remote control. All you have to do is hook up an amp and speakers. The same can be said for the brand's WIM Amp. Now, they released the WIM Amp earlier this year, and I was blown away by the fact that it had a streamer, DAC, and amp built in. All you have to do is add some speakers, and I'm going to talk about a pair of speakers in the budget category in this video that would do really well with the WIM Amp and set you back for an entire system about $700. So WIM is the budget king of the year without question. They're making very good gear for very low prices, no matter how you look at it. In the budget category for 2024, WIM is the budget champion, the budget king. I can highly recommend the WIM Ultra or the WIM Amp for people who are just getting into HiFi and you're a little shaky about those high prices. This will give you a flavor of that high end and give you a taste of what it's all about. And the beauty of it is you don't spend too much on it, and maybe next year you'll decide to upgrade to something a little bit even fancier. So for the budget brand of the year, without question, that goes to WIM. So let's move on. Let's start talking about different categories. What about speakers? Now, I've reviewed quite a few speakers in 2024, and I'm going to talk about my favorites. But first, we'll break this down as budget, mid-tier, and exotic, if we have an exotic. So budget, my favorite budget speakers of 2024, hands down, without question, because they really blew me away for their $450 price tag. And that is the ELAC Debut 3 DB63 speakers. Now, these are two-way bookshelves. They sound alive, punchy, they have kick, they have balls, they have a beautiful mid-range, they have a good treble. It's not the best thing, it's probably the weakest spot of these, and they have dramatic bass for their size, very punchy kick and bass. I haven't heard a pair of speakers sound this good at this price point probably ever. So these are my favorite budget speakers of the year. Are they going to sound like a pair of Focal Diablos? No, of course not. But for $450, they're going to sound pretty much like something in the $1,500 range. ELAC Debut 3 DB63 bookshelves are phenomenal for the $450. These are speakers you can actually add to that WIM amp I talked about a few moments ago, and that would make for a killer under $1,000 system. So runner-up for the budget speaker of the year, I also really enjoyed the Voyager TLs from Galleon. I reviewed those earlier in the year. They bring a warmer, kind of analog vibe, a a fuller bodied, warmer sound with the treble is still extended, but it's a little toned down to give you that beefy warmth that a lot of people look for. So runner up is the Voyager TLs from Galleon. Let's move into the mid-high end tier of speakers. And I have three that I really liked. And I'll start with number 3. Out of all the speakers I've reviewed this year, I really enjoyed the Pearl Sibelius. This is a gorgeous speaker made of real wood, one single coaxial driver that provides a full range sound. So that little driver is providing your bass, your mid-range, and your treble. You don't need different drivers to achieve this with the Sibelius. And what this means is it's going to sound more human, more organic. It has a special vibe going on these speakers, and I was so close to buying a pair, but I couldn't scrape up the funds at the time. When I had the review set here, I was going to buy them because I became addicted to their vocal performance. The way instruments were shown and fleshed out in a way that was very, as I said already, organic. They're just a beautiful human type of speaker. I love speakers. I love music reproduction with a little bit of soul, a little bit of heart touching, and the Sibelius offered that up without question. So moving on to the number 2 pair of high-end speakers I really like this year are the Triangle Duetto 40th Anniversary Magellan. That's a long name. Now these are really nice two-way speakers. They look beautiful. They're a little blingy, but they have dedicated stands for them, and the sound is so pure, so clean. The treble is absolutely beautiful. Somehow these speakers, when set up properly and with decent source and amp, provided for me in this room a walk-in sound stage where you could actually feel like you're walking past a performer. It was pretty eerie and spooky. I've only experienced this maybe 3 times, but the Triangle 40th Duetto Magellans are really special two-way speakers. They're some of the finest I've ever heard regardless of cost. Now the Triangles come in around $7K, I believe, somewhere around $7,500. And they use premium parts. They have premium designs here, premium build. The speaker connectors are gorgeous, but the sound is heavenly. And no matter what amp I used with these, no matter what DAC I used with these, they were never bright or brittle or lean or hard. As a matter of fact, I'm hearing less speakers like that these days. The majority of speakers I'm hearing these days do have some warmth and body and foundation to the music, and the Triangles do that. Absolutely stunning performers, especially in a smaller to mid-size room. So going on to my favorite mid-high-end speakers of the year, they also come in at close to around $7,000, and I just reviewed them, the Pure Audio Project Duet 15s. These are open baffles, so they're dipole. You hear some sounds coming from behind the speakers, but the majority of it is coming from the front, as it should. But these speakers allow you easy placement. They don't really create room issues like box speakers do. They have a wide open sound. The bass is organic and full and natural rather than booming and pressurizing. The mid-range vocals are sublime. They come out into the room with a body and soul to them. Nothing thin going on here. The treble is extremely detailed, yet it's of the smoother variety. These are immersive speakers. This is the holy grail, and I say any open baffle or any Pure Audio Project model is probably near the holy grail of the immersive experience where the sound stage comes out and it's almost a palpable thing you can reach out and touch. They're a little bit different from box speakers. They don't have that striking crispiness or that super bold, crisp impact kind of sound. It's more of an enveloping, beautiful, rich, harmonically textured kind of sound. So those are my 3 favorite mid-tier to high-end speakers that I've had in here in 2024. So let's move on to my favorite streamers of the year. 2024, there's a lot of stuff that came out this year, and I just want to say I have not heard it all. There's a lot of things I haven't heard that if I did would probably be on this list versus what I have. It's hard to say. I can only go by what I've heard this year, and I'm talking about things that may not be brand new products in 24, but they were new to me in 2024. I'll have some of those kind of products in this list as well. But let's move on to streamers and my favorite streamers of the year. I've already talked about it, but my favorite budget streamer this year is the Wim Ultra, without question, at 329 bucks. It's a no-brainer for anyone looking to start a system, maybe a second system. Maybe you're curious about what a $300 streamer preamp and DAC sounds like. Phenomenal for the money, and that wins the budget category in streaming. The mid-tier range in the streaming department, I have to give that this year to the Eversolo DMP A10 that I recently reviewed. Powerhouse streamer DAC preamp. This is Eversolo's best streamer without question when it comes to parts quality. They upped the design, made it a little bit beefier and chunkier, added a display to the volume knob. The app is actually fantastic and remarkable, smooth, glitch-free, probably the best streaming app for any streamer I've ever used, regardless of cost. The sound is crisp and clean, but it also has a little warmth. The sound stage width is dramatic. You can use it as just a streamer, or you can use the DAC inside as well. The DAC inside is actually very nice, much better in my opinion than what they put in the A6, and a little bit better than what's in the A8. So in that mid-tier area, the Eversolo DMP A10 takes it for me. And by the way, I'll put links to all the reviews of these pieces if you missed them in the description below. So my favorite streamer in the high-end realm for 2024 this year just came in recently, not so long ago, and I've been enjoying it. And I've been blown away at this little silver box. It's kind of a technological marvel, really, or if this is just the way streamers are going. There's a lot of streamers in this little size of box, and I'm talking about the new Nagra streamer. I think it's just called the Streamer from Nagra. Now this is 4,995 bucks. Typical Nagra prices, you're looking at 20, 30, 40, 50, 100, 200,000 bucks. Their streamer, their only streamer that they've ever made, and it's new, is under $5,000. I want to thank Unveiled Audio for setting up the Nagra streamer review. Jonathan over there sent me his unit. He just got it in. It was brand new, and he said, check it out and see what you think. And they sent along an optical or fiber cable to use the N-Link output. Now, I'm going to talk about this streamer a little bit and why I find it so remarkable. It's actually all out my favorite streamer of 2024. And first of all, the sound quality is absolutely stunning when I use that fiber cable into the Nagra tube DAC. There is zero hash, zero digitalness. It improved it even further from using the HiFi Rose RS-130's USB output into the same DAC. Now, this streamer only has an N-Link out, which is the same output, I believe, as the P-Link from Playback Designs, because the same guy that designs those DACs designed that the DAC innards for the Nagra, and it uses a similar connection. So that fiber connection is very unique. It also has a coaxial output, and that's it. There's no USB, there's no I2 squared, there's no standard optical output. It's just the coax and just that N-Link output. So this is really a streamer, I think, geared for Nagra users, and you can use that fiber output with the Nagra Classic 2, the Nagra HD DAC, and the Nagra Tube DAC. Those are the three DACs from Nagra you can use this with. Now, testing it with another DAC, I use the coax output of the Nagra streamer, just going into the Weiss DAC 501 Mark II that's been here for review as well. Again, stunning sound. I cannot believe the sound coming from this little box, and I think that's what Nagra focused on here. They left out the screens, they left out a remote. There's not even an app for this streamer. They left out all the bling and all the stuff that makes you say, ooh, look at that. And they focus solely on the sound quality. Now, you can also hook this up to the Nagra Classic PSU, which is said to further elevate the performance. I did not get a cable, which requires a LEMO to DC attachment from Nagra. I did not get that cable. It does not ship with the streamer, but it does have the capability to hook up to the classic power supply from Nagra. And at under $5,000, this is a box you can display on your cabinet, or you can hide it in the cabinet and never see the streamer. You don't ever have to see it. It stays powered on 24/7. And the beauty is it works with Spotify Connect Tidal Connect. You can use the M Connect app with Qobuz to stream Qobuz, and it will be Roon ready soon, I am told. It's not quite, the certification isn't done yet from Roon, but when done, it will be ready to go with Roon as well. It's a simple, basic streamer in looks, but the sound quality is absolutely top tier and sits with, or maybe even slightly best, it's a little different, my HiFi Rose RS130, which has been my reference for 14 months. The Nagra is a little more natural, the Rose is a little more impactful and a little more precise in the imaging. So yeah, that's my favorite streamer of this year, the Nagra streamer. So let's move on. We just did the streamers. What about my favorite DACs of 2024? I heard a lot of DACs this year, so let's just move right on into it. So for the budget DAC, and I consider this price of $9.99 to be budget. I have DACs here that cost 12 bucks. It's awful. I have had DACs here that cost 300, 400, 500. They were good, but nothing that blew my mind. This DAC I'm talking about today is the brand new DAC from Topping, the D93. Now, I heard the previous D90 DACs, and I didn't review them because I thought they were just average. And while they measured perfectly from what I understand, or measured really well, for me, the sound fell a bit flat of the older versions when I compared it against some other DACs I had here. They also had a little bit of a digital signature. Now, the D90 Mark III is the new DAC from Topping. The price is now $9.99, about $1,000 but the sound is spectacular. It's fuller bodied. It doesn't have all of that digititis going on. It sounds more refined. It's still not going to compete with those $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 DACs. But if your budget is $1,000 or under for a DAC, take a look at that Topping D93. It's really remarkable for the price. As for mid-tier DACs I enjoyed this year, the Live Harmony was the big release, DAC release of 2024. And everybody who heard it agreed. It sounded lovely. It looked unique in its design. Some people didn't like the gold or brass colored highlights, but I had it in black and silver here at one time, and I prefer the black. The Live Harmony sits in that mid-tier. It's well under $5,000, but it has kind of an electric sound, a livelier sound up top. It has body. It has decent bass performance, but it's more energetic than a lot of other DACs, say the older Dana Frips DACs, which were more laid back. I said in the review for the Live that it reminded me somewhat of the Cord Dave. Now, no, it can't match the Cord Dave, but the way it does detail, it's a more energetic, lively DAC. At least it was in my system. Now, the other DAC that's kind of tied with this in the mid-tier for me for 2024 is the Dana Frips Pontus 15th anniversary. It has a little more solidity, a little more heft. Details jet out with a little thickness compared to the Live, which is a more delicate, harmonious kind of sound. The Dana Frips Pontus 15th is not as laid back as the previous Pontus versions. Instruments seem to come out in a 3D space, but there's a more solidity to it. So I also loved the Pontus 15th. Also under $3,000, and it's a brand new model, much improved in my opinion from the previous Pontus version. So let's move on to the high-end realm, the exotic realm of DACs. You guys already know that I had the Nagra Tube DAC in this year, just recently, and it is without question the finest, most beautiful immersive DAC I've ever heard, but it should be for what it costs. If you buy it with the classic power supply and the VFL plate that stops vibrations, you're looking at $48,000 brand new. Of course, you can just buy the DAC alone and plug it into the wall. The DAC alone is $29,500, I believe. There's also a lower cost power option for the Tube DAC. You don't have to buy the classic PSU. There's a lower cost option that elevates the performance. And then you're looking at, I think, somewhere in the 30s, mid 30s for the DAC and that power supply. So the Nagra Tube DAC, without question, is the finest DAC I've heard in life. And it's the finest DAC I've heard this year. But man, is it pretty pricey. The sound the Nagra brings is immersive. It's beautiful. It's layered. It's rich. It has depth. It's analog-like. It doesn't sound anything like digital. Now, I have another DAC here that retails for $12,000, and it's been here for several weeks, and I have fallen for it just like I fell for the version that came before it. I'm talking about the Weiss 501 Mark II. Now, 2-3 years ago, I reviewed the Weiss 501, the original version, and I talked about its studio tape-like vibe. It's almost perfection in the way that it brought forth the music. Now the Mark II now uses 4 DAC chips. The Mark I used 2. So this means the Mark II has 2 DACs per channel, and this really did up the performance when listening. Now, the 501 Mark II is beefier than the Mark I. It has more heft, bass. I've never heard a DAC do what the 501 Mark II does for bass with any of the speakers I've tried it with. It just brings an instant enhancement and performance boost to the bass drivers in your speaker, and it remains tight and fluid and enveloping. The mid-range is beautiful. It's a little more heftier and solidified than the Nagra. With the Weiss, the voices are even a little bit heftier or chestier. And with the Weiss, the treble's a little more exposed, has a little more electricity going on versus the Nagra. But either way, the Weiss does not sound digital either. It's so refined, so smooth, but it retains the big drum impacts, the richness of a violin, right? The weight of a piano key. I would say the Weiss, I could live with the Weiss or the Nagra and be happy as a clam with either. And that makes the Weiss 501 Mark II my second favorite DAC of this year in that high-end realm. Now the Weiss DAC is unique because while at $12,000, it's expensive and it sits in the same casing as the Mark I, uses the same DSP algorithms, the vinyl emulation, etc., has a headphone amp built in. But the performance of it is truly top level. For me, it sits with something like a DCS Bartok, and it's just a little bit different flavor of sound. And Weiss knows sound. Daniel Weiss won a Grammy for his work in sound. So he knows what he's doing, and he's really designed these DACs, his DACs, to sound like a master tape. But the Mark II just has this extra juice about it, and it's really, really pretty awesome. So let's move on to integrated amps. What's my favorite budget integrated that came through here in 2024? I would have to give that to the $799 Black Ice Audio FX10 amplifier, integrated amplifier. It even has dual subwoofer outputs. It has a cool glass casing, and it uses EL84 tubes. It doesn't put out much power. It's something like 10 watts or something like that. Might be a little less, but it has high current. So that means it can drive more speakers than you might be led to believe. The sound is very tube-like. It has that velvet-like quality in the vocals, a little bit of glow, but it also has really good bass impact and bass performance. The Black Ice Audio FX10H is really one of those products that brings you such immense value. It even comes with a remote control. It's small, it's kind of heavy, but it sounds beautiful. And if you have speakers that are, say, 91 dB efficient and easier to drive, that's an amp that will really surprise the heck out of you for $799. Now, in the mid area of integrated amps, one came in this year that really surprised me. I didn't expect it to be as good as it was. And I was left, after I sent them back, I was scratching my head saying, how could they offer all of that for that price when brand B is offering something very similar for 4 times, 5 times that cost? I'm talking about the Advanced Paris A12 Classic. So the Advanced Paris A12 has a built-in DAC, it has a built-in phono stage, it has the subwoofer out, it has high power, it has beautiful electric blue VU meters, it has glowing tubes front and center, it has a glass front panel. It just, maybe it's plastic, maybe it's plexiglass, I'm not sure, don't quote me on that one, but it's just an all-out beautiful looking integrated amp. And it's this big flagship looking thing, and it's not $10,000, it's not $15,000, it's $3,700. And Dan at Dedicated Audio set up that review for me, and I was blown away at the sound quality and the appearance and the build quality for that kind of money. I would expect that amp to be like $69.99 from most any other brands who would offer something like that. So the Advanced Paris A12 and even the A10 were really hitting well above the price point that they came in at. I can highly recommend those if you're in the market for something really beautiful, really special and eye-catching, something that when someone comes in, they'll say, that's a cool amplifier. All for $3,800. The Advanced Paris A12 Classic is my favorite mid-tier price range integrated amp of 2024. So what about the higher end as we get up into the $5,000 to $15,000 price range? You guys might know what I'm about to say here, but my favorite integrated amp in that price range this year is the Electro Compagnie ECI 6DX Mark II. I was blown away by the amp section of this integrated most of all, but it also had a really good DAC and a fine streamer built in as well. The remote's all plastic, a little lackluster, but the sound of this amp is what makes it special and unique. It has a solidified sound, but with crispy details that come out into the room with a little bit of magic around them. But everything is so solidified. The bass is so solid that you don't feel any holes in the sound from top to bottom. I've heard a lot of amps where the mid-range sounded thin and recessed or weak, and I've heard other amps that were pretty muted up top, or some amps that were just explosive in the treble and it was too much. The way the EC amp does this, the 6DX Mark II, and you can get the version for less money without the streamer and DAC. The amp section in it for me is what made my speaker sing. And I've never heard an amp quite like it with that sound signature in that kind of price range. I'll link to my review for that amp below, but it's a remarkable piece of equipment that powered every speaker I tried with it with absolute ease and with a similar character that just sounded so right. You know, and the company's slogan is something like, if the music matters, and the music does matter to them. It's obvious. So my favorite high-end integrated amp of 2024 is the Electro Compagnie ECI 6DX Mark II. Now I have an exotic integrated amp to talk a little bit about here. And it came in a while ago, and it has just been blowing my mind on a daily basis. Now, this is an exotic territory integrated amp. It costs a lot of dough. I think it's something like $26,000. And it's high power, 300 watts per channel into 8 ohms, Class AB. The first 30 or 35 watts is Class A. And I'm talking about the T+A, made in Germany, PA3100 HV integrated amp. Now this thing has been out for a while. I think it was 2017 they released it. They used to have the 3000 HV. This is the 3100. It stands for high voltage. The way that TNA designed this is very unique. They designed it to run like a tube amp using high voltage rails that are way higher in voltage than any other solid state amp or any other solid state amps the way they're made. So they run it like a tube amp, and their theory is, well, if we run it with these high voltage rails, will it sound more like a tube flavor? You know, that flavor that so many of us look for, that welcoming, immersive sound. And they did this. They have a few other tricks up their sleeve. They built it all in-house in Germany. You're not getting all the parts from China and they're saying assembled in Germany. This is a bona fide end game, holy grail, probably top 3 integrated amp in the entire world right now. And it's been out since 2017 and it still sits at those top ranks. Now, I'll be having a big review of this in probably in January, mid-January. But as soon as you turn this thing on, it just exudes a sense of power, authority, but also grace. It can also handle those delicate moments within music and recreate them in that delicate manner. But when you need that force, that blunt force, that power, it also has that. And while 300 watts into 8 ohms, I think it's 500 or 600 watts into 4 ohms, I'll get it right in the review. This thing just exudes power, class, sophistication. The design, the build is like nothing I've ever seen. It is a remarkable integrated amp. And those of you with the big pockets, for me, this is a dream piece. And I've dreamt about this amp for years, and I finally got it in here to try out for myself. And after experiencing it, after building it up in my head for years, it has met and even surpassed all expectations. A lot of manufacturers most design an integrated amp to meet a price point. We need to sell this for $4,500. So let's build it so we're making a hefty profit. So that means they got to use cheaper parts. TNA built this without a cost in mind. They're like, let's just do this, make it the best integrated amp we can make using the best parts, the best technology, the best engineering, the best design, and let's see what happens. And that became the 3100 HV integrated amp. Beautiful, beautiful piece. It's one of those heirloom pieces, that'll just last forever. All right, so that covers my favorite pieces of 2024, but I do have a couple of honorable mentions. One thing that stuck in my memory, and I still have them here, are the Verum 2 headphones. These things are so remarkable and for such little money. I've heard a lot of high-end headphones that cost thousands of dollars, and I've never really been blown away by them in comparison to my speaker setup. But these Verum 2s for a few $100s are absolutely stunning, not only in sound, but in looks, and they're so lightweight and comfortable. They just sound amazing, amazing, amazing. The best I've heard them sound, by the way, is with the Nagra Tube DACs headphone amp. Remarkable headphone amp in that DAC. That's probably the nicest headphone amp I've heard to date. But the Verum 2s are awesome if you're into headphones. I also have a second pair of headphones that I use often, actually. I use them when I'm listening to music on my phone, maybe if I'm working or editing a video, or if I'm just laying in bed and I don't want the whole kit. I use these, and they're the Mez 109 Pros. They're beautiful to look at with their beautiful design and the wood. They're comfortable, and they have a more tipped up energetic sound versus the Verums, which are warmer, more relaxed, and just immersive in your head. The Mezzies, the 109 Pros, will get you up and going more. They have more prat. They have more energy. But those are the two headphones that I really loved in 2024, and I still have both of them here. What about cables? Now, I use a set of 13-year-old Nordist Valhalla speaker cables that I recently refound, and a set of Nordist Valhalla interconnect cables. These are really old cables. I can't afford the new lines from Nordist, like the Valhalla 2 or the Tier 2 or anything like that. I used to have Red Dawns. But when it comes to speaker cables, this is a very personal choice. I don't really recommend these days anything exotic or fancy in the speaker cable department because it's going to sound different in your system, in your room, with your gear than it would in mine. But I will recommend to everybody out there a set of speaker cables that I've recommended a few times now. $39, 12-foot pair, pure oxygen-free copper. They're attractive, they're easy to move around. They come pre-terminated with quality banana connectors. $39 at Amazon, and they sound really, really good. They'll bring a little bit of warmth because of the pure copper cabling, but they have detail, they do the imaging. They're just a little lighter footed and a little less confident than, say, these Nordist Valhallas. But those Valhallas are going to set you back thousands on the used market, where these are $39 for, a wonderful set of cables. Now, I've looked at cables, many cables up to $150. These were my favorites, hands down. I'll put a link to those in the description below if you want to check them out. So there you go. I also have a written version of this over at my website. I'll link that below as well. But thanks for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I can't believe we're coming to an end. 2024 is coming to an end already. Christmas is on the way. It's coming up fast. And I just want to thank you guys for watching the videos here, for subscribing. If you want to get notifications, be sure you hit that notification bell. There's a ton of people who watch these videos who don't subscribe, who don't hit the notification bell. So I'm looking to kind of boost that in 2025. Hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and comment. If you comment, it helps YouTube to spread these videos even more. I love you all. I thank you all, and I will see you soon in the next one. Bye.